So first, let me introduce Ericka Erickson, who has worked at the Low Income Investment Fund for over 2 years as a policy and program officer and manager for early care and education. She was recently promoted to strategic administration and equity director. Congratulations. And she's led efforts to mobilize partners for policy change by spearheading the development of Build Up California, a diverse coalition of advocates for early learning and care facilities. Her work was instrumental in the state investment of over $300 million in the Department of Social Services Child Care and Development Infrastructure Grant Program in the last 2 years. She's a community organizer with over 20 years of experience in collaborative community project management, building coalitions, and promoting community education on issues such as affordable housing, transportation, and childcare. A native of Brazil, Ericka is a doctoral student in educational leadership for social justice at San Francisco State University and has a master's degree in public administration, a bachelor's degree in business administration, and a graduate certificate in early childhood education. Whew, I made it. Welcome, Ericka.
Thank you. I'm sorry if it's too long.
No, it's
yeah.
Perfect.
So is it time for me to talk about LIFT briefly, or?
I'll introduce Jerry first, and then
Okay.
and then we'll go through intros.
Thanks for having me.
So also would like to introduce Jerry Beltramo. I think many of you know him for the work that he's done in the Los Altos community, helping out a bunch of the restaurants and businesses as we've gone through this challenging time. Jerry's the GM and co-owner of the Rustic House Oyster Bar and Grill. And he's kind enough to join us today on one of his few days off, I'm sure. Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks, everyone.
So Ericka, let's go back and maybe you could start off with a brief overview of I think the acronym is LIF, if I'm not mistaken, right? So brief overview of the Low Income Investment Fund, or LIF, and how you work to advance equity and opportunities in various communities.
Thank you. So first of all, I'm so glad to be here and grateful for the work you do. I took a look at your website, and as was in my bio, I worked with coalitions pretty much my whole career, have deep appreciation for the work you do and the change you make. So keep up the good work. I also was a planning commissioner in Marin County, where I live, for 2 years, and worked on 2 housing elements. And also I serve on Women's Commission here. I'm a member of the Women's Political Action Committee. So also connect with fellow women commissions and advocates. So thanks for your service. And I, as Joe said, I have been working with the Low Income Investment Fund for the last 2 years. And I embrace the mission and connect with it because it's really aligned with my personal mission of really building communities of opportunity, equity, and well-being, and in this way address poverty, right? So the Low Income Investment Fund is a national organization with over 25 years of history, and we are a community development financial institution. Marie is a former staff member of LIF, and can't wait to connect with you, Marie, to talk more about it. But we have, we mobilize capital and partners to advance equity in communities. So the way we do that, we serve as an intermediary for funds for especially affordable housing, childcare, education in general, and community facilities. And during this time, we invest over $2.9 billion in communities, serve over 2.3 million people, created or preserved over 87,000 homes, and created, preserve, or enhance 280,000 childcare slots. So the work that I personally do is that have been doing with LIFT is mobilizing partners, and I'll talk more about it. So that's who I represent here today with you, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Perfect. Thank you. Jerry, I think most of us are familiar with both the food and the cocktails, perhaps, at the Rustic House, but maybe you could give us a little bit more of an overview on the business and how you guys got going and whatever else you'd like to include.
Sure, Joe. We've been in business now a little bit over 4.5 years. We employ around 50 people. We seat about 180 people. I just recently opened an event center where the old karate studio used to be, in fact, and that's coming out real well, wine dinners, etc. I'm hoping that I can be of some benefit, Joe, and that although I know almost all the restaurateurs in town and quite a few retailers, I'm going to speak, I think, specifically to my challenges, if I've had any, and I would be happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Sounds great. Yeah, that event center, I think, is a great addition to the portfolio, and it's always inspiring when you see small businesses expanding or adding new locations during a challenging time like COVID. I have a deep respect for people who are able to pull that off during those challenging times. So we're gonna start with a question for Jerry. And in the past few months, as part of the LACC events, we've heard from other businesses about some of the challenges they've faced, and would love to hear to what extent the inability to find affordable housing in the area affects your ability to attract, hire, and retain your staff to operate the business.
Thanks, Joe. I've given that some thought, Joe, since I've got your questionnaire earlier in the week, and I'm not. Again, I'm going to speak specifically to my situation.
Yes. Uh-oh. We lost you there, Jerry. I think you muted.
Sorry, gotcha. My bad.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, sorry. I don't know how that happened. Again, specifically to my circumstances, yep. We have had most of our employees, Joe. We have had pre-COVID and since we've opened. In terms of hiring, traditionally, what we do is we go to our employees and see if they have anyone who might be interested in coming to work, depending upon whether that be back of the house or front of the house. I think if any challenges we have now is that the unemployment rate in California now is at historic lows. I think it's running around 3.9%, somewhere in that area. In fact, I just recently read that 15% of all the people hired in the country, 15% were hired in California. So the labor pool is dwindling, I think. And if anything has hurt us, that has probably hurt us more than anything. The ability to go out and find somebody with experience in the industry, because that's important, because you don't want to take somebody from ground zero and begin that training process. That's long and expensive. So if specifically as it applies to affordable housing within the area,
yes.
In my personal experience, I haven't seen that as a problem. I think that most of our people live in Mountain View. Quite a few of them might live in the San Jose area, and commute together. All seem to have their own cars. So at this point in time, I don't see it as an issue.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Yeah. And I mean, when I've been there, I've noticed, relative to some other restaurants in town that have really struggled and are still
yes.
operating with skeleton crews, you'll have, I don't know, 15, 20 people, serving and bussing and it's always very impressive that there were so many people there.
And Joe, I don't mean to diminish that there are some restaurants in town and some retailers in town that are having difficulty finding people.
Okay, great. Ericka, we're gonna switch over to you, and you know, those of us with children really struggle to balance everything, you know, work, family, school, childcare, whatever it might be. And, you know, can you talk a little bit about the state of childcare services? I know you have you know, some info on what's going on in California. Would love to hear your perspective on some of that.
Yeah. So as many of us know, we have children in our life in one way or another. Nowadays, the society changed so much in the last decades, right? We have women in the workforce, both parents working, and I have a 12-year-old daughter, and that's how I started to be involved in childcare when I saw they struggle to find childcare, but not only find childcare, find quality childcare, right? And back then, 12 years ago, I used to pay at least $1,300 a month for childcare full time to be able to continue to work. And nowadays, the average for childcare per month is $1,800. Oh, yeah, $1,800. So it's I didn't qualify for the subsidies that many qualify, right? And but the middle class, right? Like we are definitely in a tough situation where we cannot afford this, but we don't have the support system. Sometimes with housing, the way it's so expensive in some cities like Los Altos and where I live too, Marin County, and the Bay Area in general is it's very families are spread, right? They move out of the some of the cities that are more expensive, and then we don't have that childcare support. So in general, like 12 years ago and before, was already hard to find childcare. Now with the COVID pandemic for the last 2 years, it became harder and more expensive. The average numbers we get in terms of the number of facilities or programs that close, it's about 30%. So it was already hard, now it's harder, and many in our field of childcare are considering closing the doors. Not only the extra demand in terms of cleaning and the stress of being exposed to coronavirus, that now waiting for the vaccine that came, and we don't have so much that worry. But at the same time, there is still some regulations that are in place to ensure the health and safety, especially because of the little ones cannot get vaccine. We have a very stressed workforce that business owners like family child care, they're very precious to the ecosystem of childcare in general, because they serve the little ones, the most of the little ones, 0 to 3, right? And these are this is the field or the age group that we have really a crisis in California in terms of the supply and demand that is very different, right? So we have still grateful for the legislators in California. The child care field is really regulated, and most of the funds come from the state level. We have legislators that decided to support the child care field, especially for the most low-income families, in a way that they continue with the same change in the guidelines in terms of the way that they fund these programs. For example, they are funding the programs not based on attendance, but enrollment, right? And so if a kid is sick or feeling sick, they are not worried that they will lose that income because that kid stayed at home, right? So this is one of the benefits in California that are provided to childcare business owners and programs and teachers. But there are many like other investments in the state budget that was including the state budget, but we are really far still in terms of really providing really meaningful living wage to childcare workers and teachers. and early care and education teachers, right? And this is really a key piece of the puzzle in terms of sustaining and enhancing our early care and education services in California, Los Altos, and Bay Area. But in California in general, we see this as a crisis of the whole state and the United States, not only specific areas. So you probably have a lot of examples in terms of parents and your family members trying to find childcare, asking you to take care of the childcare of their kids. And this thing that it affects all of us, including business, when especially the women cannot go to work because of usually we are the ones providing care in our homes. We have a wage gap in terms of men and women, so women tend to stay at home. We don't have flexibility in terms of schedule. Business like Jerry's, when you have to work in the evening, if the family doesn't have childcare provided in the evening, they cannot go to work, right? So it affects all of us. So this is like an overall picture of the childcare situation right now, and we can talk about how to connect with housing.
No, that's great. Thank you. And I'll follow up on that, Ericka. So, given your work on, the Planning Commission and housing elements, as well as the work you've been doing at LIF, can you talk about maybe opportunities for connecting affordable housing and the childcare services?
Sure. So this is in the housing element, we have some programs, right, that are outlined there, that are updated every 8 years. And there we have an opportunity to, one, promote the connection between housing and services in the community, right? So make sure that in the language there, and I saw that you have already a draft, Los Altos has a draft, the housing element, but it's still being discussed by planners and the city council. So you have the opportunity to educate them about the opportunity to include language there about connecting with childcare services and including that in the program. Also, regarding zoning, right? Zoning is important for us to promote zoning that allows childcare centers in or near all the residential areas, including mixed use, right? Because childcare is considered business, so promote that mixed use. Also support, put language there, and we have materials that we are about to release in terms of policy briefs and examples that you can use in terms of language, and I'll make sure to follow up with Joe and share that with you. But support co-location of childcare centers and family childcare homes in housing developments, right? So there are many examples of affordable housing developments where you can not only include a childcare center as part of that, but also design some units of affordable housing, of that affordable housing development, specifically for family childcare. So that's the win-win combination in terms of you have women that are part of this, the residents of this affordable housing development. That's the business, the small business opportunity for them, promote their asset building, and it provides service to the residents and to the broader community, depending on how it's designed. Also ensuring that barriers to family childcare providers are removed. There was a bill that passed in 2020, it's the SB 234, that reduced a lot of the barriers for family childcare providers to be approved in different communities. And what we saw in our research, quick research before this presentation, is that Los Altos code, the zoning code, or the code, the business code, appears to still require a use permit. And this bill was passed at the state level, but still there are many communities that didn't embrace or didn't make that formal, and we need to make sure that we are following that new law. And it seems that the Los Altos still has changed that. And then I would close saying that it's important for us to promote housing-related resources to family childcare providers, right? So, for example, we have homeownership, fair housing counseling. We hear a lot about tenant and landlord issues with childcare providers. It's important also for us to not only depend on the state for funds for family childcare providers to have a healthy environment in their homes in terms of now, for example, climate risk, right? That's increasing with the heat waves, for example. We need to make sure that these environments are safe for our kids, and a lot of these family childcare providers don't have the resources to be paying the electricity bill or to have the HVAC systems that are needed to keep a good environment at home and their learning environment. So these are some examples of how we can integrate affordable housing and the housing element with childcare.
That's great. That's a new perspective we haven't heard here before. So super helpful. Thank you. So Jerry, switching back to local matters. I know for many businesses in Los Altos, the ability to hire has kind of varied over the last few years, from pre-COVID times to the last couple of years during the heat of COVID, and now as we enter this new phase, which isn't quite post-COVID yet, but sort of more of an endemic period. Can you talk about what you've seen with regards to the ability to hire, either for your business or for other businesses in the area?
I think there's I have personally not had a problem. I kind of qualify that, I guess, by saying that there have been issues at times with maybe not having the qualified people that I need to fulfill my needs. But I have talked to a lot of people. For example, there's an awful lot of restaurants that are closed in Los Altos on Mondays. And the input I get back from that, obviously that's a good day for us because everybody else in town seems to be closed. But the feedback I get back from other restaurant people is that they're having problems hiring, that they can't staff that Monday, and also not get into a situation where they're looking at double times and overtime. So, but in terms of my ability to hire, again, we've really resourced our people. And work through them more than anything. Now, we've used services like Indeed, for example, that has brought in some people at different points in time. But I think that the ones that I see that are really hurting in terms of hiring are retail. I think retail is really having a difficult time. And part of that is because I think, frankly, because in my opinion, they're not paying enough. And that becomes an issue in trying to draw somebody of any kind of talent at all if you're not giving them a fair salary. That again leads me to my operation, was I think that we try to be fair with everyone. Obviously, we do fairly good volume, so our front of the house staff is happy because their tips, et cetera, are pretty high. Back of the house again is a different kind of challenge in that. We have to continually talk to them, find out what their needs are, what they require. You talked about childcare. A lot of them have difficulty with childcare. And so they're either relegated to working nights or mornings because they got kids at home they got to be taken care of at some point in time during the day. So we listen to those things. And we try to help them out in those areas too.
That's perfect. And just to follow up, you mentioned recruiting through your staff. Any other creative approaches that have worked or not worked? I don't know if you're paying them bonuses, for any referrals or things like that, but any creative approaches you can talk about?
Yeah, we do that. And I think one of the things we do, and I'm not sure if this is unique to us, I think we were the first ones that started it. We tip out our back of the house people. So that means that all the money is generated in the front of the house through servers and bartenders, et cetera. They're required to take a portion of that tip and devote it to the back of the house staff. That's helped us in terms of back house. But to your question specifically, Joe, I don't think anything's been as tried and true as the model that I described. That is, going through our employees. They know what kind of business we operate. They know what to tell their friends, for example, as to what to expect once they get there, in terms of from management staff, et cetera. So that's been our best area. And I don't think it's really changed much, even pre-COVID, Joe. I don't think things have really changed much in that hiring process.
Okay. Great.
Again, though, I think the lack of people, the low unemployment rate is really, really derogatory in terms of us hiring the qualified people we need. Again, Joe, we're at 3.9. That's pretty low for California.
Yeah, exactly. All right, great. Thank you. So we'll bounce back to Ericka. Would love to get your thoughts on ideas you have for any federal, state, or local programs that what they could do to help with the affordable housing problem.
Well, there are many opportunities for affordable housing. Like now, to support affordable housing efforts, at the state level, we see that there is a lot of investment now because of the momentum we got I'm saying, like, in terms of highlighting the crisis with affordable housing. A lot of the homelessness issue is increasing in our city. So there was a lot of investment now with the surplus that we got at the state budget with the infusion of investments in affordable housing programs. So definitely, like, you all, like, part of this coalition, you are connected with affordable housing advocates at the state and federal level. So keep up the good work. But I want to highlight the opportunities specifically to connect affordable housing with childcare. It's something that is an innovative approach, but it has been implemented by some affordable housing developers, and in a successful way, in terms of building the assets and building increasing the economic mobility of residents by connecting affordable housing with services and especially childcare, right? So in California now, through our work with Build Up California, that is a network of advocates for investments in childcare facilities, we, for the first time, advocated this past fiscal year for the creation of a fund in the Housing and Community Development Department to promote that co-location of affordable housing and childcare. Again, not only centers, not right spaces, the classrooms in the affordable housing development, but also units dedicated to family childcare. So by talking with and studying this issue, we found many obstacles, not only funding, right, the availability of funding, but also regulations and timing, like as many affordable housing advocates know, and developers, folks that work with development, that there's timelines, right, in terms of how the puzzle of funding, how it comes together, the different phases of development, and a lot of times the timeline for childcare, regulations, licensing, and etc. is not the same as the affordable housing development, and the funding also sometimes don't match. So what we are promoting is and advocating for with many partners around the state, and we hope to have you as partners too, is this creation of a study in California, similar to one that was implemented by Oregon last year, that identified the opportunities and barriers for this co-location of affordable housing childcare in California. And also, this study would inform the implementation of this fund, this program, that would work in many communities around the state to reduce the barriers for this co-location and promote, right, this combination of services in a way that we can address poverty and promote economic mobility, more efficient in a more efficient way. So I will send fact sheets to you, and as soon as now we are in August, we just finished the budget cycle. We were not able to get. We were asking for $10 million for this fund because it's the first time we were asking. There were many, of course, conflict, not conflict, but many demands in the state budget for very important causes, and we were not able to get that. But what we were able to get through this process was building relationships with many organizations around the state, especially two communities that we are considering to pilot this program is in San Diego and Fresno. So we have great partners, coalition like yours, working with us, and we hope to have you also on board to work with the state to reduce the barriers for this kind of innovative approach. So I will, again, follow up with you, Joe, and send you the materials, and we hope to stay in contact so we can work together in the coming months and years.
Great, thank you. Jerry, same question to you. Any ideas about federal, state, or local governments and what they could do with regards to affordable housing?
With regard to that impacting my ability to hire people?
Just in general in Los Altos.
No,
Yeah,
I think I agree totally with Ericka. I think affordable housing is definitely needed. How that specifically impacts my business, however, Joe, is probably a little bit different in that I think that because of what housing is in California and the expense of housing in California, that requires businesses like mine to provide a living wage, right? I mean, we have to be able to keep the wages up to a point where people are comfortable and that they can survive. And I think affordable housing is most definitely needed. This is the first I've ever heard of combining affordable housing with childcare. I think that plan may work. I'm not sure if it's how it's progressing. I think that maybe maybe I might be taking on too much. That's a question for Ericka, I guess. We tackle affordable housing first and then worry about combining childcare with that, or no, I think that I think it's definitely needed. The way it impacts my business is from a bottom line standpoint is that I've got to pay higher wages. Yeah.
Yep. And then just wrapping up here, and then we'll get to the Q&A. Jerry, anything else we should have asked you and we failed to ask you that's important to your business? Would love to hear your final thoughts.
Joe, I don't think so. I think it's been a good discussion. I guess one of the things I probably should have asked you is what is our ultimate goals here? What are we trying to do in Los Altos within the community? Is it to create more affordable housing? And now, as Ericka's brought into the picture, affordable housing and childcare. Childcare interests me a lot. I think that that's really, really important for the people that work for me anyway. Most of them have families and are really dealing with either parents or grandparents taking care of their kids right now, or having to pay for that. And again, that goes to the affordable wage thing. No, I think it's been a great discussion. Thank you, Joe.
All right, great. And yeah, I do see the comments in the chat. I thought we could maybe ask Ericka those questions during the Q&A, but just wanted to, Ericka, get your thoughts on anything else we missed, and or if you want an opportunity to address the questions in the chat, feel free.
Yeah. So one, I forgot to say about the local level, right? And I'll explain the difference between centers and family child care first. So centers, as you can picture, are like the business are usually like a little school that is independently like located in a building by itself or as part of another property, a bigger property, a building, or a multi-use kind of development. And they have classrooms that are specifically dedicated to early care education, and usually multiple classrooms, and they hire the teachers and they serve kids from usually from like 1 or 2 years old up to 5, 6, and even after school programs too. Many of them serve babies too, but the most babies in our society nowadays and around the country, they go to family childcare homes, where the women that are the residents of their homes, they open a business and they receive the children in their homes and they take care of them. Many of them serve also school-age kids, but they usually serve babies. And of course, that's important for us to offer different types of services to families in different settings, because our families are diverse. We have different preference. Some of us prefer our kids in a home environment, and some prefer more and more professional center environment. It's all good. So it's important for us as we plan our cities and our services to offer different kinds of services in different settings. So just maybe Marie can add to that, but just to close in terms of the other opportunities to promote affordable housing at the local level, and especially this co-location piece. Not only the housing element is very key. Once you have a program or a language there that is like that the city council, right, and your city in general embrace in terms of promoting affordable housing and childcare, that will inform their work for the next 8 years and more. So you will have a piece of a language, a paper, and intention that you can then refer in upcoming years. Like, oh, as in this housing element, you said that you it's a program, and advocate for that implementation, because there is the plan, that's the housing element, but the implementation is also a battle, right? It is a struggle, so needs to be attentive to the implementation. One of the most important piece, I think, is also in terms of that co-location and affordable housing too, alone by itself. Promote, advocate for local taxes or local source of funding, because as we know, we have cycles in our economy, and a lot of times affect the state in a way that they cut the funds for service of affordable housing and childcare. So for us to be resilient as a community and keep the work going between the during the crisis, right? It's important for us to create local source of funding and be creative about that. So I think that if you can include language or enhance the language in that aspect in your housing element, it's super important, like to create local source of funding. So that's my last 2 cents.
Okay, great. Well, thank you both. I want to make sure we have enough time for Q&A. So why don't we open it up right now to the audience? If you have a question you'd like to ask of either Ericka or Jerry, please raise your virtual hand, and we'll call on you in order and just sort of see where things go. So I see some of our steering committee members already have their hands up. Marie, why don't you go ahead?
Thanks, Joe. So Ericka, you talked a lot about co-location of programs, childcare and affordable housing programs. In Los Altos, a lot of the developments for affordable housing are quite small, so 4 to 8 units, for example. So perhaps family childcare would work in those. We have a couple of larger developments coming on that have several hundred units in them. And so the question is there a minimum size to have a child care center co-located with affordable housing that you would recommend, or not?
Of course, that each project is unique and depend on the feasibility of the project, right? To include or a unit like you mentioned that is designed already for a family childcare business. As Jerry mentioned, like, oh, are we tackling too much at once? First talk about implement affordable housing, and then after childcare. How about if we think in advance, be proactive, and already design in a way that's integrated, right? We know that's needed, and instead of making the big investment only in affordable housing, and then after making childcare, try to adapt that. How about if we design work is smarter and then design already some of the units, for example, even in small development for our childcare business, and in larger developments already go with that plan to include childcare there. That reduces commute times, reduces stress for the parents, and you can design in a way that the program is open to the community, not only to the residents of that affordable housing development. So in a way, Mary, it depends on the program, depends on the surrounding community, right? If it's a community where there is a lot of demand for childcare, most of our communities have, and you can design the program in a way that it's open to the community to improve the feasibility of that program and sustainability. So there is no minimum if you can be creative, and depending on the surrounding community and how you design the program, if it's open to the community or not. So
Great, thank you. Kim Cranston.
Joe. Thank Jerry and Ericka. Thank you both for the very informative discussion here. Ericka, I have a question for you. One, I assume that if you identify childcare providers, people involved in that, as essential workers entitled to below market rate housing in a community, that makes it easier to provide the services in a community like Los Altos. But my question really is there any information about sort of the multiplier effect, I might call it, of, I don't know how many for a co-located childcare in say a large building with a lot of housing, how many people need to be providing childcare for how many children? And I assume there's some multiplier there that for each additional person providing childcare, X number of people are freed up to go work. And very interested in any data you have around that. Thank you.
One of the things that we have been doing is just implementing studies, right? We have been working a lot with graduate students from UC Berkeley, for example, to create these reports and do this research. So more data is coming out. I will share with Joe as a follow-up links to some of these publications that have that information. But I don't have the numbers here with me, but you can imagine, like, and by working in this field for the last 7 years, I'm always like blown away. Like to make a classroom open, it's such a puzzle to put that together, because as you know, there's a workforce crisis. Jerry, praise to you to not be affected so much by that. I think that's a great example of how a business can build a relationship with the employees and provide a living wage, and in this way create have a stable workforce in your business. I really admire businesses that do that, but a lot of business can't do it, and that's the child care field is one of them. That puzzle of providing a living wage with the income they receive, especially with subsidized child care, it doesn't matter. Like it's hard to make that puzzle happen and to put that puzzle together. And the wages for early care and education, educators, right? It's very low at this point. And as you know, Bay Area is quite expensive, and there's only so much you can commute in one day to go to work. And it's a very stressful job, as any of us that take care of kids, little kids, can can testify that if you take care of one, is already a lot. 2, 3, 4, 5, it's quite a challenge. And for the wage that we have now, you can work at Target, Costco, and others, and sometimes make more. So, and you don't have all to follow all the requirements and reports and etc. So, we have really a challenge in our society on how to fund this program, and they provide benefits, Kim, like you mentioned, multiplier benefits, and I don't think we have enough studies that really show that impact. We all can feel and know, but the numbers, I have to come across to like really show, like you mentioned, like, okay, for each classroom, how many workers, how many families, right? It would be interesting to have an infographic about that. I haven't seen that, but I think it's a great idea. And if I come across anything like that, I'll let you know. But there are many reports out there with big numbers, but it would be nice to see an infographic like that. I'll bring to my team this idea.
All right. Thank you, Ericka. Next question is from Janine Veladez.
Hi, Joe, and thanks, everybody. Thanks to the speakers. Very stimulating. My question is directed to both, but probably primarily to Jerry, since you're a business owner. You know, looking at some of the challenges that local businesses and even our own city has faced in hiring, you know, one of the biggest issues that we face now in terms of hiring and retention is that employees are becoming very discriminating in what factors attract them to a given job. And you just mentioned the unemployment rate is pretty low. So, you know, they're looking for flexibility, diversity in work hours, whether it's by how they compose their week or even during a given day. The work from home versus work from the business. And obviously in your case, that might be more difficult for certain workers. Benefits, and whether they're co-located near childcare, which has a strong correlation with shorter commutes from their home, commuting over an hour, you know, and that's where you're at home is where your childcare is. It makes life very difficult for you. And as men contribute more and more to childcare, it's not only a women's issue anymore, although it's still predominantly one. How do you compete? How do you compete to get the best employees to have the lowest turnover? And then how can nearby affordable housing help you in competing for that employee capacity?
I think some methods are tried and true. I think that once you hire someone, it's important that they know what their responsibilities are. They're trained properly. I think it's very, very important that all employees know that you have a concern for their well-being. That's been what I've done my whole career, is made sure that every employee that I have knows that I'm concerned about them. I'm concerned about their family, and that goes a long way, I think, into retaining, keeping, and also hiring new employees. I think that the word spreads. People know what kind of operation you run. People understand that here may be some guy that will listen to you, will understand. In terms of affordable housing, I'm really not sure. I'm not sure what that would bring to my ability to hire. I say that only because most of my employees, again, 80% of my employees live in Mountain View. The other 20% anywhere from, Sunnyvale into San Jose. I think they're happy where they are. I think they have their own communities. I think they for them to uproot themselves and bring them to an affordable housing unit in Los Altos, for example, coming from Mountain View, it's not that far, and yet they're leaving behind the communities that they've come to love, their friends. So I'm not, in terms of my specific problems, that isn't a problem of mine, and I don't see it as being one.
Great. Thank you, Jerry.
I
Oh.
just want to share, like, we have about 150 employees all over the United States, and one, it's interesting, Janine, because I'm just moving to this new position where we are dealing with this issue of hybrid work, right? And the resistance, like in the knowledge economy, we deal with a lot of folks, like I'm working from home and I'm fine, thank you. But I love to go to some events, corporate events, and events with partners and meet people in person. But the time, like you mentioned, the commute time, it's definitely an issue, especially in the Bay Area. Our office, for example, in San Francisco, I live almost an hour away, and many others live even further, like Sacramento, right? And how do we, again, I call it a puzzle, like how do we put this puzzle together of Jerry mentioned, promote the wellness and well-being of our employees, caring really about them. So one of the ways that we are doing is really mapping where our current employees live in relation to our office to inform our phased approach of promoting this hybrid work now. And we work to promote affordable housing. And unfortunately, some of our employees, like the entry-level employees, even qualify for affordable housing in San Francisco, and because it's so expensive to live here. But it's something that definitely would help with the culture of the organization if we could have more of our employees that live close to our offices. But we are reinventing ourselves, and this change in approach of hybrid work is changing the face, how the cities operate. And I will be happy to send you a little video that I came across this last week by The Economist on that topic specifically. It's really affecting how we plan our cities.
Great. Thank you, Ericka. Gary, I know I want to get to your question, but before we lose everybody, I just want to do our announcements in case people need to leave at 9:30 really quick. Our next meeting will be 8:30 to 9:30 on Friday, September 9th. Again, on the Los Altos housing element, it'll be with Randy Suda, who's the president and CEO of Alta Housing, and Michaela Hellman-Tincher, who's the housing and neighborhood service manager for the city of Mountain View. So that'll be another in our series on affordable housing. If you'd like to join the LACC mailing list, please send an email to info@losaltoscommunitycoalition.org. Maybe Marie can post that in the chat for us. And then, big thank you as always to the Los Altos Mountain View Community Foundation for providing us with financial and in-kind support. Thank you, Adine. And as always, thank you to Larry Barron for all the work that he does to help make these videos accessible on our YouTube channel. So let's go for a final question here to Gary.
This is a follow-up question for Jerry. Of course, the expectation is that affordable housing will help the workers and the workforce. It sounds like your employees aren't taking advantage of that. Have they tried? There are affordable housing projects in Mountain View. Have they looked at that, or have they been able to take advantage of those?
Hi, Gary. How are you?
Thank you.
I can't answer the question, Gary, because I don't know. But I tell you what I would do. I think that'd be interesting to see if anyone is taking advantage of that in Mountain View. And I'll get back to Joe and get back to you, Gary. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
All right, great. Well, thank you all. Great conversation. Really would like to thank our speakers today. Really, really well done. I know it's a little bit challenging bouncing back and forth between the local business and childcare, but I think we had some good thoughts about how those two might come together. So hopefully we'll see you all in a couple of weeks. Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Joe.
Thank you.